Hey guys, if you're new here and you like what I'm putting out, don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you never miss an upload. So, Mighty Morphin issue number 10, we learn the origins of Lord Zedd and why he looks the way he does. Now, this issue came with a little bit of controversy, and I say controversy lightly because it's not that big, it's not that crazy, people aren't rioting in the streets, but it does have the fandom confused with Lord Zedd's appearance. You see, in the comics, we learn that Lord Zedd used to be from Eltar, like Zordon, and they were brothers in arms, people who fought in the Eltarian War. And at the end of Power Rangers in Space, when the Z-Wave went off, you got to see Lord Zedd as a human, a normal human being without blue skin. And people say, does this change the lore? Does this retcon it? And I want to say yes and no, it does retcon the history of Lord Zedd, because the comics and the TV show are two different continuities, two separate canons, and the word canon is also a loose term because people use it in weird ways, so it's a word that gets thrown around a lot when it comes to fiction. If you're a fan of Dragon Ball, you'll hear that word every day in your life, what's canon, what's not canon, but canon is a word that can be used in its own way, depending on the audience. So, is Lord Zedd's origin a retcon from what we saw at the end of Power Rangers in Space? Let's talk about it. So, what does the word retcon mean? Well, on Urban Dictionary, there's two meanings. The original meaning, adding information to the backstory of a fictional character or world without invalidating which has gone before. Or two, the more common usage, adding or altering information regarding the backstory of a fictional character or world, regardless whether the change contradicts what was said before. So, is Lord Zedd's origin a retcon to the TV show? Does this change how we view Lord Zedd as we saw him at the end of Power Rangers in Space? Yes and no. One of the main arguments I'm going to have right here and right now is the comics and the TV show are two totally different continuities. They're two totally different universes from what we've seen on the show growing up or watched on TV to what we're reading in the comic book right now. The TV show took place in 1998 or whatever year Power Rangers in Space aired, and the comics take place in modern days. So they're two totally different timelines and universes going on right now when it comes to the comics. So this is Lord Zedd's origin stories told from another point of view. Now, some people make the argument that the comics are canon and they're canon to the TV show, but that's another story for another day. And like I said at the start of the video, the word canon is tossed around a lot lately when it comes to fiction, so I don't want to get too deep into the whole what's canon to Power Rangers, what's not canon to Power Rangers, because the franchise has had a couple of retcons and lore changes over the past couple of years. The show was very different from when it started to what's going on right now, so that's a can of worms for another day. But say if the TV show and the comics were canon, they did intertwine, they did connect. One of the arguments I've seen, and Ryan Parrott even brought this up in an interview on the Ranger Command podcast, is people of Eltar are able to change their appearance. You've seen it with Candace, where she can look like a normal human schoolgirl, and then she can look like a person of Eltar. So, one of the arguments could be made, maybe Lord Zedd was in disguise when he got turned back into a human at the end of Power Rangers in Space. I don't know. You guys can be the judge of that. Now, the only contradiction I see with this origin story in the comic is an annual that was released back in 2017, where we saw Goldar and his brother Silverback, who claimed to be serving Lord Zedd before the whole Zeo Crystal incident that we saw with Zolfram. Now, this was in 2017. This was before Ryan Parrott took over writing for Power Rangers when Necessary Evil started, and the comic was still in its early years. And not only that, that was when Saban was back in charge of Power Rangers, and from what Ryan has said in interviews on Ranger Command and Ranger Danger, Saban was very protective of what Ryan could and couldn't do when it came to the comics. And I believe what he sort of hinted at in one of the interviews on Ranger Command that I'll have a link in the description down below is Saban did not want to reveal the origin for Lord Zedd. It was a storyline that he wasn't allowed to touch upon. And Saban had plenty of other rules with that when it came to the comics. Maybe I'll get in touch with Ryan one day and we can talk about it if he's allowed to talk about it. But that would be a fun video I would like to talk about, talking about the yes and no's that Saban did, like Saban had, for the rules they had in place for writers on Power Rangers. But that's one thing you can talk about. Like, people say it's a contradiction, it's a retcon, but those one-shots didn't really tie into the main comics. One of them did, the Draken story, but that's a story for another day. We're not talking about that. But I can ignore that story because that was before everything went down. So, to conclude this video, is the Lord Zedd origin story a retcon? Is it not a retcon? That's totally up to you if you want to decide on that. I'm not going to force your hand and decide if you want to decide if it's canon or not. That is totally up for the reader to decide, and it's up to you to decide because, like I said, the comics and the TV show, one would argue they're different universes, they're different continuities. Some argue they're the same continuity, so at the end of the day, it's up to you, the viewer, the reader, if you want to decide if this flashback was canon or not. But with that said, I think I'm going to bring this video to a close. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and don't forget to turn on all notifications, stuff like that, so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, take care, bye-bye.
Thank you.